There is something I have to tell you. Something I should have said before now.
Then tell me now. I'm not going anywhere.
The Vel'nari physicians had told Vael the truth when she was 16. Not cruelly, the Vel'nari did not do things cruelly, they did them precisely, which was sometimes worse. The senior geneticist had sat across from her in the clinical white of the palace medical wing and explained, with the careful language of someone who had delivered this particular news before, that her genetic sequence carried a variant found in approximately 3% of the Vel'nari population. The variant was not dangerous, did not affect her health, her lifespan, her capabilities in any domain that the Vel'nari considered meaningful. Meant only one thing practically speaking: she could not carry children. Vael had listened. She had asked 3 precise follow-up questions because she was 16 and already understood that the right response to difficult news was clarity rather than reaction. She had thanked the physician, had walked back to her quarters through the long palace corridor, and she had sat on the edge of her bed and looked at the wall for a long time. Then she had gotten up and gone on with her life and told no one. For 11 years she had held it, the way you hold something heavy that you have decided to carry alone, not with suffering exactly, but with the particular discipline of someone who has accepted a thing completely and placed it somewhere they do not have to look at it constantly. She had not been in a relationship that required her to look at it until Ren. He was a coalition diplomatic attaché, human mid-30s, the kind of quietly competent that announced itself through results rather than presentation. He had arrived at the Vel'nari capital 18 months ago as part of the Trade Framework delegation, and he had done something that no other coalition representative had managed. In the 8 years Vael had been attending diplomatic functions, he had spoken to her like a person, rather than a princess, not rudely, not without respect, as directly, without the particular careful distance that people maintained around her title, as if royalty were a temperature that required them to stand back a certain number of feet. Ren had stood at the correct diplomatic distance, and then, when she had asked him a direct question about the trade proposals, weakest clause, he had told her the actual answer instead of the diplomatic one. She had found this unexpectedly like oxygen. 18 months later they were here in the blue dark of the observation level above the capital, where the city's light filtered up through the atmospheric haze in colors that Vael had loved since childhood. They had been here before many times. It had become, without either of them officially deciding it, their place. "There is something I have to tell you," she said. "Something I should have said before now." He turned toward her with that steady attention she had come to understand was simply how he listened, completely without preparing his response while she was still speaking. "Then tell me now," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." He told him all of it: the physician's office, the precise clinical language, the 3 follow-up questions, the walk back down the corridor, the 11 years of carrying it alone. He told him the way she did everything, clearly, without embellishment, with the specific courage of someone who has decided that accuracy matters more than self-protection. When she finished, the city light moved in the haze below. them blue and amber and slow. Ren was quiet for a moment. Not the silence of someone processing bad news, something different, thinking carefully. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Yes." Do you want children? Is that something you want? For yourself, separate from what you were told you couldn't have? Nobody had ever asked her that. The physicians had told her what was not possible. Her family had absorbed the information with the diplomatic grace of people who understood that succession planning would require adjustment. Not one person had asked her what she actually wanted, as if the inability and the desire were the same question. She thought about it honestly, the way she had not let herself think about it in 11 years. "Yes," she said. "I think I do." Ren nodded slowly. "Then, I want to tell you something. Not to fix it, I understand. It's not something to fix. But because you told me the truth, and you should have the same back." He had been, he explained, doing quiet research for past 3 months, not because he had known what she was about to tell him, he hadn't, but because he was a thorough person who, when he cared about something, learned everything about it he could, and he had been learning about Vel'nari genetics for his own reasons that had to do with the future. He had been thinking about carefully for some time. The variant she carried, he had discovered through coalition xenogenetics. Research had been studied in the context of interspecies compatibility for 15 years. The research was not conclusive. It was not a promise. The variant that prevented Vel'nari genetic pairing operated on a specific biological mechanism that human genetics did not trigger in the same way. The interspecies pathway was different, untested, in her specific case, but different. There was a physician at the Coalition Xenogenetics Institute on Vareth Station who had spent a decade on exactly this question. Ren had her name. He had already made a preliminary inquiry, not on Vael's behalf because he would never do that without her knowledge, on his own behalf as someone who wanted to understand what was possible. Vael looked at him in the blue dark with the city light moving below, and felt something shift in the place where she had kept this for 11 years. Not hope exactly, she was too careful for hope. That came that quickly. But the thing that lives just before hope, when a door you had locked from the inside shows you there might be another key. "You've been researching this for 3 months," he said. "Yes. Before I told you." "Yes. Why?" He looked at her with those steady eyes that had always given her the actual answer, instead of the diplomatic one. "Because I've been thinking about a future with you for longer than 3 months," he said. "And I wanted to understand everything about what that future could look like. All of it, not just the easy parts." The city breathed below them in blue and amber. Vael had carried this alone for 11 years. And now she was not carrying it alone, and